Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting very shortly. Just waiting for everyone to join. Thank you for being with us today. Hello again, everyone. Good afternoon. We'll get started in about 30 seconds, so get cozy. Wonderful. We have people trickling in, which is great. So thank you again for being here. And maybe, Prod, we will get started. So thank you. Welcome everyone to the student webinar for the SFU Medical School. As we begin, I would just like to note first that this webinar is being recorded and will be available shortly online for those who were not able to join today. This webinar is being hosted by the Office of the Vice President Academic, VPA, with support from SFU's Maurice J. Waugh Center for Dialogue. And on behalf of both organizations, we want to thank you for joining this important conversation. So we're all here today to learn more about SFU's plans for the proposed medical school, and more importantly, to hear from you, SFU students. And we know that you're so busy right now. We know that midterm time is upon us, and you're maybe even starting to think about final exams. So perhaps this webinar is a study break for you. Maybe you heard about the proposal and you're just intrigued, or maybe you're thinking about pursuing medical school in the future. Regardless of your reason for joining us, thank you. We're very grateful for your time. Before going further, I just want to share that we're pleased today that we have live closed captioning available. So you can access the closed captioning by clicking the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Throughout the webinar, we're going to be supported by two of my wonderful colleagues from the Center for Dialogue, Prod and Salam, and you can reach out to them at any time directly in the chat for any IT or webinar questions. So for our events, we always want to start off in a good way, which means starting by paying tribute to the land on which we live, work, and play. And I encourage you to do the same from wherever you're joining us. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. This territorial recognition is particularly important for us as an educational institution because we have a responsibility to advance reconciliation. And I think this responsibility can also be considered as an opportunity when we think about creating a new program like the proposed SFU medical program, in terms of how we center Indigenous voices, perspectives, and ways of teaching and learning. So to get things started this afternoon, I thought we'd find out a little bit more about who's in the room with two simple poll questions. So if I could get the poll, please, that would be wonderful. So we're trying to get a sense of which represents you. So where are you joining from as a student? So if you can just select which faculty. And then the second question, how familiar are you with the proposal for an SFU medical school? So this shouldn't take us too long to answer this question. So I'd love if you would just take a couple of moments to click on the answers. That would be great. And I'm actually seeing that I'm not seeing the answers coming in. So I wonder if participants do have the option to click on the poll. I'm hoping that you can. I'm wondering, Salam, in a couple of moments, if you're able to show me the results, because I don't see the results coming in. Wonderful. Okay, Jocelyn is saying yes, she has. So maybe we can just take 5 more seconds or so, and then let's share the results. Wonderful. So it looks like we have quite a few from Faculty of Health Sciences and Faculty of Science, which makes a lot of sense. But we also have a few from Faculty of Applied Sciences, as well as Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And then when we asked you how familiar you were with the proposal for an SFU medical school, this is really good to see, actually. The majority of you are either somewhat familiar or not at all familiar. And so I think this webinar is a perfect space for you to be today. So thank you for answering those questions. Before we jump into the discussions, I just have a quick few housekeeping items to review with you today. So first, I'd just like to go through the agenda. We have 1 hour together, and I would say a very ambitious agenda. So if we could just get the agenda slide put up, please, Slam. Wonderful. So we're starting with these welcomes. Then we'll have a presentation from Catherine. We'll have time for you for questions from the community. Then we have a closing round and some closing remarks. So our ultimate goal today is to provide an engaging and respectful experience. And as part of your registration, I just want to remind you that you did commit to participating in a respectful manner and to building a safe and welcoming space for everyone. And before I turn it over to Catherine, I wanted to introduce you to Slido. So many of you may be already familiar with Slido after 2 years of working and learning virtually. We're going to be using Slido for the upcoming Q&A session with Catherine. And there are many different ways to access Slido that are listed here on the screen. And I believe my colleagues are also sharing it in the chat. So during the presentation, we would encourage you to start adding your questions to Slido. And after the presentation, you're going to have time to review those questions and vote on the questions that you most want Catherine to answer. And given our limited time together and how many of you there are, we might not be able to get to all of the questions, but rest assured, we're going to track all of the questions and we'll be sure to answer the ones that you most vote on. And for those of you that don't feel comfortable or who are not able to use Slido, please just share your questions in the chat and then we will copy and paste those directly into Slido. So now it is my great pleasure to welcome Catherine Dauvergne, SFU's Vice President, Academic and Provost. Catherine, thank you for being here and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined us in the audience and to our fabulous tech team who are supporting us behind the scenes. It's really great to be here talking again about this very exciting program proposal. So today, as you can see, when you look into my little square, I'm at my office, which is on SFU's Burnaby campus, territory that is shared by the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Ketsi peoples. And I recognize that folks will be joining us potentially from all three of our campuses, so including the four host nations here at Burnaby, but also territory that belongs to the Ketsi, the Kwai-Kat, the Semiahmoo and Swasin peoples. So please do, as Michelle said, take a moment to think about whose territory you're on today. I was really pleased to see in the poll that a number of you actually know something about the medical school proposal. And let me say that if you know something about the proposal, you might know everything that there is to know about the proposal, as we are in very early days. And I have just a few slides to share, and I'll do that really quickly because I want to make sure that we spend as much of our limited time as possible answering the questions that you may have. So this very, very early process comes about because of an announcement that was made by the NDP government just over a year ago. So during last year's election campaign, the party announced, the NDP party, before it was the government, announced that one of its part of its election campaign platform was to begin a medical school at SFU with a focus on the Surrey campus and with learning centers throughout the Fraser Health region. So Fraser Health is the region that our Burnaby and Surrey campuses are located in. And so we were quite excited about that. And people at SFU have been really talking about the potential for a medical program here at SFU over at least the past decade. And I think, there are a number of students with us this afternoon from the Faculty of Health Sciences. I think it's accurate to say that SFU is a very strong health research center, and also that a lot of our current research is focused on public health issues, Indigenous health issues, and equitable access to health services. So those issues and our knowledge on the research side really mean that we're, there are lots of logical reasons why we would want to be involved in a medical school project. And so conversations have gone on behind the scenes for about a decade. Last year's announcement during the provincial election campaign was the first sort of public commitment to a medical program at SFU. And that was followed up by a commitment to a second medical program in the province of British Columbia, which appeared in both the mandate letter for the Minister of Health and the mandate letter for the Minister of Advanced Education, Skills and Training. So we think of that person, Minister Kang, as our minister, the person who has responsibility for universities. So this really has set us firmly on the path of working towards developing a medical program. And what we're doing now, as you can see on the slide, is we're really, we're spending time talking with our SFU community, with faculty, with staff, with students, with our board, with our Senate, with various SFU governance bodies about sort of people's hopes and dreams for the school. And we're also doing some consultation. We're sort of in a pre-consultation phase or a pre-engagement phase with external communities. And I want to pause there and talk a little bit about who we think the external communities are. The announcement about a new medical program said at that time that the program would be developed in partnership with the Fraser Health Authority and the First Nations Health Authority. And one of the things we've done all throughout 2021, I realize it's getting close to a year now, but we started this work early in January, is working with the health authorities to figure out what a partnership between a university and two quite distinct health authorities will actually look like, and how it is that given three partners that each bring very different things to the table, how we're going to manage that partnership in order to develop and then support and run a medical program. And that has been really exciting work and is a little bit about the external community, but is really a lot about the foundational partnership pieces. And so when we think about external community engagement, we're partially talking about our work with our partners, but also talking about working with and listening to and engaging with communities that are served by the Fraser Health Authority and the First Nations Health Authority. And so I want to say something else about where we're at in this process, which is we've had this announcement. We have, after which the political party that made the announcement was elected and translated that announcement into the commitment of mandate letters. But we do not yet have a financial commitment or a timeline agreed upon with the government. So we are still very much in early days. And we really, the slide is very nice in that it makes it look like progress is linear. And I always want progress to be a linear thing. But I do think in terms of talking with our SFU community and talking with the external communities that we hope our graduates will serve, these two parts of the process are going to recur. So, once the funding is secure, then we're going to be talking again about the next stages of the project. And, once we're finalizing curriculum and programmatic elements of the school, we're probably going to be out talking again. So, the thing about a diagram is it oversimplifies things a bit. But what it does illustrate very nicely is we're quite close to the beginning. If we injected internal and external community conversations back in at every place they would occur, we probably couldn't fit it all on one slide. So that's where we're at. And let's take a look at the next slide, please, Salam. So we've made some commitments to ourselves and to our partners about what we want to do with a new medical program. And I think what makes having a medical program exciting for SFU and for the health authorities is the opportunity, which comes along really like once in a lifetime for medical educators and for provosts, the opportunity to start a program from the bottom up. The last brand new medical program in Canada was the Northern Ontario Medical School, which opened just over 20 years ago. And so this doesn't happen all the time. There are Ontario universities that are looking at proposals right now, but still, it's a very rare occasion. And we're really committed to developing a program that fits with SFU's values, that becomes a way to advance our commitments to reconciliation, that has the opportunity to look at what the cutting edge of medical education is right at the moment and move beyond that. And we have committed in our partnership charter, which is, we're just working on finalizing this with our partners. But these are some of the commitments we've made to one another. What makes it worth it for our three organizations to go forward together? Well, the commitment to community embedded, socially accountable, culturally relevant healthcare, the commitment to train culturally safe graduates, the commitment to humility in the face of cultural difference, the commitment to reconciliation to the needs of Indigenous communities, and really focusing on a commitment to primary care, which doesn't mean only family medicine. There are sort of 4 or 5 areas that we would recognize as primary care areas, but the idea is to focus on developing training for physicians who will be the first point of call, who will work in teams, who will be in communities. So those are things that we know about the proposal so far. And then I imagine that this slide is where we'll come back to in many of the questions. But I do have a few more things to tell you before we move on to that. So let's go on to the next slide, and we'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing in terms of our engagement plan. So some of you have probably attended our webinar on the 18th of October, in which Joy Johnson and President Johnson and I talked about this program and gave a few more details because I'm running a little bit more quickly through those details today. If you would like to see that webinar, it is available on our website and you can go back and take a look at it. We're following that up with having a series of webinars with particular invitee groups. So this is, people who are here today are students. We're also doing some work with Indigenous faculty, staff, and Indigenous students. We're doing some work with the Faculty of Health Sciences, and we'll also have a session for faculty members who might be interested in one way or another in teaching in the school. And what we're trying to do right now is, by the end of the academic year, to really develop a document that explains the full potential for innovation and creativity that we're hoping for in this program. And of course, because it's a proposal to government, we're also trying to work out in detail what the cost of a new program will be, because understanding the costs and getting them right from the beginning to make sure that we don't embark on something that will cost us in other surprising ways is really important for us for getting this right. And while we're doing this work in our SFU community, we're also going to do some engagement work with existing community tables within our that our health authority partners convene on a regular basis. Okay, so that's our plan for enriching our thinking about this by talking to other people. And then I'll just come to the final slide, which is to give a few remarks to help you think about questions. So I'm not looking at the questions as they're rolling in right now, but let me say that our next, Salam, if we could just move to the very last one, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we see there while people are looking at it. Wonderful. So this is the last one for now. Okay, I'm supposed to save those closing ones for the end. Thank you, Michelle and Salam, for keeping me on track there. I can stop talking now and look forward to answering questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's because Catherine, for all the students, we've been doing many of these presentations, so the PowerPoints are always slightly different. So really appreciate, Catherine, that presentation and your overview. And now we're going to shift to the part that I'm most excited for, because I personally love Slido. Maybe I'm a little bit of a geek, but I find it a really fun and interactive way to choose those questions that are the juiciest questions, or the questions that we are most wanting Catherine to answer. So I see that Prod is going to be putting up the questions, which is great. So as we answer these questions, please do continue to vote on them. Slido will stay open for the duration of the webinar, so you can keep adding your questions as well. So let's get things started. We have our first question, which had 11 votes, so by far the most popular, Catherine. When will the medical school host its first class, and is that class only available to SFU students? Are there any requirements for the new class, or can you apply regardless of GPA? So this is a triple question, but love to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, so many of the answers to these three questions are things that we haven't decided yet. So, but I'm going to take a stab at giving you my very best guess right now. Once we have a firm funding commitment from the government, which I'm hoping will come within the next 6 months or so, it then, if everything went really smoothly, would take about 3 years to get to the point where we would be accepting students. So I'm thinking that that's first people in an entering class in the fall of 2025 or 2026. So not super soon. But not terribly far away. It's just that there's a lot of work to be done between now and then to develop curriculum, particularly brand new curriculum. And one of the decisions we have made already in this process is the way to short circuit some of that timing is to take accredited curriculum from another medical school. And I don't mean by taking, I don't mean stealing, but borrowing, buying, something like that. And just implementing that at our school. But we really want to take the opportunity to do things very differently. And so we're going to take the time to make our curriculum from the ground up, and therefore to have our curriculum accredited from the ground up. That's why it takes that amount of time. So I would say optimistically, first class in the fall of 2025. Pessimistically, I don't like to be pessimistic. We'll stop.
Let's keep it. Let's be only optimistic.
Yeah, since I don't know that. I think what you're asking when you say to SFU students is there going to be a sort of mandatory pre-med program at SFU? I doubt it. And I actually think that we probably will. Every Canadian medical school at present has an admission preference for students within their own province. And you can qualify for that provincial residency standard in a number of different ways. So, for example, students who are currently SFU students actually are on the preferential admit list to UBC Med as well, because if you attend university in the province, you're considered a provincial resident. So we're thinking about, I need to understand a lot more about the provincial residency preference. It really comes from the fact that provincial government invests in medical schools in a really significant way, including a much higher per seat payment than other areas of the university, a very significant commitment to funding clerkship places and residency places. And it's really very much a medical school within any Canadian province is a very significant provincial government endeavor. So my best guess at this point is that BC residents will have some priority coming into our school. And we haven't worked out what exactly our admissions requirements will be, but we will have a robust and diverse admissions program. So certainly, and this is I imagine that a number of you in our audience have actually taken a look at med school applications in other places. And you'll know that it's quite an involved process, that there's not a medical school in Canada right now where you can write an MCAT, send in your GPA, and then sit back and wait for an answer. We're really interested in finding out which students we're admitting. We're really interested in finding out what people's interests are and whether there's a fit with the mandate that we're in between students and the mandate that we're envisioning for our graduates. So we're interested in people who are interested in Indigenous health. We're interested in people who are serving underserved communities. We're interested in people who are who have experiences in those areas. We're interested in people who, you know, want to become graduates who contribute to the primary care needs within this province, in order to develop an admissions system that takes some of those questions into account. It's going to have to be pretty robust. So I would not say we won't look at GPA. A GPA will be in that mix somewhere. But my guess is that there are going to be probably at least half a dozen different things that we score students on. I spent 3 years as a member of medical school admissions committee for UBC. That's a very complicated process. I imagine this one will be at least that complicated.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I love how every time I have the opportunity to do some of these presentations with you, I keep learning things about this proposal. So there's another really good question that has 11 votes. So how do we know how students can get involved with the SFU Medical School development process beyond this webinar? Do we have any initial thoughts about that?
Well, very interestingly, if everybody else's screen looks like mine, you'll see the name Kelly Little there, and Kelly is the director of, works closely with me, and she's the director of the medical school project office. And she's just in the final stages of hiring a couple of students to work with us as research assistants. And so one of the ways that students can get involved, and some students are already getting involved, is to help us with this early work. And once we get, I think that those job ads are closed now. And the last meeting Kelly and I had about this, she was in the process of offering people jobs. So that is a way that some students are involved, but not a way that people who are listening today can go out and get involved, although we will continue to staff those positions as we move forward. So that's one possibility. Another way that students can get involved is once we have a firm funding decision, we're developing a structure now where we'll have a series of committees, like an engagement committee, curriculum committee, an admissions committee. And I think once those committees are up and running, we will look for students to be members of those committees. And then there is also a student group within the Faculty of Health Sciences that we're hoping to, once we get a little bit further down the road, we don't want, let me restart that sentence, because it's not really the royal we here. I'm a little bit concerned about asking too much of people on a volunteer basis before we have a firm funding commitment.
Right.
So I want to learn about people's views, and I want to share with people what's going on at the moment. But I also want to be mindful of the fact that we are not 100, we don't have 100% commitment yet. And so we need to be careful how much we ask of people.
Definitely. And you know what I might also suggest is you're at the perfect place today as a student. If you have ideas on possible ways you envision we could engage you as an SFU student, please let us know. And at the end of this workshop, you're actually going to have a chance through Slido to give your top piece of advice. So maybe one of those recommendations is related to how we do the engagement and how we could include you in a meaningful way. So I think it's fair to say, Catherine, that we're very open to ideas right now. We're at the ideas stage. So please do share those ideas with us. So this next one is a tricky question. I think there's kind of two questions here. Why would enrolling in the SFU medical program be preferable to UBC? But in other words, what makes this program different? What makes it unique? What makes it stand out?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. And in fact, all of the work that we're doing to develop our proposal document is in many ways in the service of answering this question. So let me say right at the outset, the University of British Columbia runs a fabulous medical school. And there are, it's been fabulous for a long time, and it does really terrific work, and it has a long and storied history. So we're not going to replace the medical school at the University of British Columbia, and we're really thinking about ways that we can do something different. And we really want people to think about how this school is different from all sorts of other schools, and to try and apply to the school that's the best fit for what you want to learn and where you want your career to go. And so if I were looking at this choice, I would be thinking some of the differentiators for our program will be a resolute focus from the very beginning on primary care. Yeah. We will train people to specialize. They will specialize in things like family practice, in obstetrics, in general surgery. We will not be training people in the non-primary care specialties, of which there are many. So there will be jumping off points in the program where somebody can say, gosh, I really thought I wanted to be in general surgery, but as I go down this road, it turns out that I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. Then we're going to find a way for you to go somewhere else, because we're not aiming to train at that level of specialization, at least in, I would say, the first 20 years of this program. And that probably takes even people who are undergraduate students today through quite a lot of a medical career. We also really want to focus on underserved communities. And so we're looking for students that have an interest in underserved communities, particularly Indigenous communities. I think part of our curriculum will involve ensuring that students, now here I am like out on a limb and talking just for myself, but some of the things I most admire about universities like Hawaii, Otago, the Northern Ontario Medical School, that work very closely with Indigenous communities, is that all of their students spend time in Indigenous communities as part of their medical training. And the University of British Columbia Medical School is so large that they can't make a promise like that for every single student. But I think that's going to be part of where we're going here. And so if that's really important for you, then it would be important to be in, to say SFU is going to be my first choice. Our program is also going to be a lot smaller. We're probably, I don't know, we haven't settled this, but many of the planning documents in the over the past decade have talked about a class of 50 or 60 or 80 students. And most medical schools in Canada are bigger than that. I think, and please don't quote me on this, Google knows the answer to this question, but I'm not Googling as I talk. I think UBC is up to admitting about 300 students a year right now, although through its distributed medical program, you can have a much smaller cohort experience if you're in the UNBC, UVic, or the Kelowna cohorts. But this will definitely be a smaller cohort program. And we will be focusing on training placements in team-based clinical settings and far fewer training placements in hospitals. So there will be a textural difference in the way that learning unfolds in this program. And those are things that we really hope. We are hoping to attract students who want this program, and students who feel like, this is my second choice, this isn't the best fit for me. We're hoping that we will be able to build an admissions process that allows us to figure that out, so that we can say to people, if you want to be on that different path, there are other programs that are a better fit for you.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. And what's beautiful, I don't know if this is just a coincidence, but the next question was about the class size. And so you answered that question already, Catherine, so thank you. Yeah. And then I think we've also answered the question about what year would be the first entering year. So we'll skip that one too, but thank you for those questions. Yeah. And I think we've also kind of answered this one, but I wanted to see if there's anything else you'd like to add. So would SFU alumni be given preference when applying to the SFU medical program? So I know we talked about that BC piece in terms of if you studied in BC, you might have like a different access, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's anything more specific.
So we actually haven't come to our admissions program yet at all. I have to say it would be very unusual to have a medical program. Like there's no Canadian medical school that has a preference generally for that university's own alumni that we've looked at so far. But definitely it's, you know, we will think about this. And I think in particular, one of the programmatic pieces that we've been mulling over is how we have a great interest in public health goals and public health values in our in these early days of curriculum design. So one thing that we might think about is whether people who've done some of our public health courses, whether they've completed a master's in public health or done some of that other training, whether some of those courses might actually help people with the course load. Now, again, I haven't even said that out loud to the Dean of Health Sciences right now. So
we're the first ones, we're lucky.
No, no, the consequence of that is not that you're lucky, but that this idea may never surface again.
Okay.
And I might be completely wrong. But what I'm noticing about this question is people are interested in this. And the way that this comes through for the most part is in the provincial preference, because people who don't live in British Columbia, who've never lived in British Columbia before, can establish provincial preference by doing an undergraduate degree in the province. And there are lots of students around. If you look at med student blogs, there are lots of people around who say, well, how does that go? You know, the smallest population in Canada is Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan has a fabulous medical school with lots of seats. My greatest odds of getting into medical school, all else being equal, is to do my undergraduate degree in Saskatchewan, because then you add a province where the per capita number of seats is really high. So there's lots of calculations that go on like that for people who are looking at medical seats in Canada.
Thank you. And this next question, Catherine, might also be a bit too specific at the moment, but any thoughts about the cost of what this would cost a student, for example?
Definitely more than an undergraduate education. I think somebody who will Google will tell me UBC's MD tuition, I think it's around $20,000 a year right now. We're not going to be less than that.
Okay, thank
more.
you. Yeah. And I think this next question we've answered already. It's about when the first cohort would start. So we could go to the next question. This is a really interesting one. Within the health authorities, who within them is directly involved in this medical school development process? And so maybe it's not the people that you could name here, but are you able to speak a little bit more about that partnership that we have with Fraser Health and the First Nations Health Authority?
What I think is really interesting about this, the answer to this very good question, is that I would say that the health authorities are really deeply committed to this medical school, and we're having regular meetings about once every 6 to 8 weeks with President Johnson, the two CEOs, and senior level folks. We also have a really well-developed working group at the sort of at a staff level, another level in the institution, where we're starting to work on you know, details in finalizing our charter and in early, not curriculum questions, but really programmatic questions, answering, like, you know, a working group that asks questions like, what is the right number to start out with for our entering class? Are we going to build a new building? What would that building have to look like? Those kinds of questions. We also have a working group with individuals from all three organizations working on the external engagement piece. So quite a few people at the senior and as well as staff levels are involved in both organizations. So developing that partnership and getting to work together with all of these folks is really quite exciting. And I think I'm staring at Kelly's name because I'm sure she'd know the answer to this, but I think there are about 10 to 15 people at each organization right now who have in some way been involved in this project, even at this early stage.
Thank you. And I agree, Catherine. I mean, these, first of all, just to say to the students that have joined the webinar today, these are amazing questions. I knew they'd be interesting questions, but they're terrific. So keep sending them in we'll take about 10 more minutes of questions, and then we're going to wrap up with your key recommendation. So please do stay until the end. This is a really interesting one, Catherine. To what extent will digital health services be emphasized in the new medical school?
You know, people keep saying this to me as we get on to talking about programmatic pieces, right? Like somebody really interesting said recently in a workshop that we were having, everything will be digital in the future. And so if you want to be on the cutting edge, like, you know, why would you develop an anatomy lab when people can all do virtual anatomy now, and it's actually better and stronger? And so I think the answer is not just digital health services, but all forms of technological advancement will be really important for this school. But there's also, you know, I have been having a series of conversations with Indigenous medical educators who also will say to me, you know, if you're going to serve in a rural community and somebody's bitten by a dog and you need to know if the dog has rabies or not, then you need to be the person who goes and catches the dog. And, you know, we can't get too wrapped up in things that are very new. We have to be, because of what we want to do with the primary care community embedded mandate, we have to make sure that we really balance how we situate technology so that technology is in the service of the people and not vice versa. So it's such a fascinating question. Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be lots of high tech and also lots of no tech.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to keep evolving, right, over the next several years. This is an interesting question, linked a little bit to the UBC piece, but is there any opportunities for SFU's medical school program to collaborate with UBCs? And so this person is suggesting, you know, allowing people to be part of the same cohort, but choose their school based on their location. Maybe too specific at the moment, but wondering if you have any initial thoughts about that.
Yeah, so this question looks to me like it's coming from somebody who's really familiar with UBC's distributed medical program. So right now, UBC runs the only medical school in the program, and it runs in 4 locations. And students do get some choice around within that system on which location they attend school at. And SFU's program was not going to be part of that system. So SFU's program will be SFU based, and it will, so it's not going to be all one cohort.
Okay. And this is maybe something that I missed, so I'm curious about this answer here. What are the 4 to 5 areas of primary care you mentioned? So I'm wondering if this student just wants a reminder of those areas, those buckets of work that you perhaps presented.
Yeah, so I am thinking about a scoping document that I've read a couple of times and hoping that I'll get my memory of this right. About when people talk about primary care, they're really talking about sort of frontline care in communities. And the typical list is family medicine, general surgery, general internist, obstetrics. And I think, I do think maybe psychiatry should be on this list, but psychiatry is a kind of a specialization, not like the others. There's a standard thing. There's a standard answer to this question that I've read many times and I don't have in front of me. I apologize. And we will get that up on the website, the areas of primary care that are in that document. I apologize for not having it with me.
No, thank you. And thank you for that question. So we'll get that posted. I think the requirement question, we've spoken to that. I wonder if we can go to the next.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah. Yes, please go for it.
Admissions requirements for medical school are super interesting, and they are different at all different Canadian universities. So I think the one thing that almost all medical schools have in common right now is a requirement to have taken an English class. The sort of more traditional older model of med school admissions, where there were a series of science prerequisites, have most schools, because this isn't my area of expertise. I was the dean of a law school before I came to SFU, so I'm really much better about questions about law admissions. But in any case, like I think UBC's one prerequisite course now is you have to have taken some course in English. U of A, it's English and stats. McMaster, I think there's no specific thing. There are still a few schools in Ontario that have a list of core sciences that are required as prerequisites. And so I think the field here is wide open. And Michelle's right. I have previously said we don't know what our requirements will be yet, but it's very unlikely to conform to anything that somebody who went to who's about my age, some old person who went to medical school in the past and is talking to you about this now, whatever they're saying is unlikely to be what we will require.
Okay. And you know, it's so interesting that you mentioned, it makes me think that we'll have to have a webinar one day about law schools in the future. I did not know that.
Oh, it's much less interesting, but I'm much more authoritative.
This next question is really interesting. What would you say SFU's level of commitment is? So how likely is the SFU Medical School to happen? Like, what's the likelihood of this getting the green light, do you think?
Yeah, we're all in, and we're very excited about it. And but it is a very expensive proposition, and we're not going to do it without the provincial government behind us. In fact, I think that it would be impossible to do it without the provincial government behind us. You know, we'd have to wrap up a couple of other faculties just to get the base budgeting to do this, and we're not planning on doing that. So SFU's level of commitment is 100%. But that is not the answer of how likely is it that the SFU Medical School is going to happen. That the question of how likely it's going to happen is in the hands of the provincial government. And we're hearing all positive signals right now, but that's really, I can't go further than that with that question.
Okay. And I think we maybe have time for one more question. So I might just use my, you know, creative powers here and go with the question. I'm really curious about, will you be committing to having a diverse group of people using affirmative action to ensure that marginalized communities have equal opportunities? So I think a question about the vision of who you would like that student body to be.
Yeah, so we're very interested in having a diverse student body, and we're particularly interested in having a robust Indigenous cohort. And we're hoping that the school will be exciting in such a way that it really attracts a diverse group of students. I don't think there's any Canadian medical school at the moment that doesn't have this goal, including a goal of ensuring places for Indigenous students. The particular mechanism of affirmative action, and here is where I really do sound like a lawyer, is usually used in American college admissions. And I think we will instead use some other mechanisms. And we are, you know, we're in the early days of figuring out like even in creating a cohort of Indigenous students, there's a lot of complexity. And we really want this school to be accessible to Indigenous learners who otherwise might not have access to this particular educational pathway. We're giving a lot of thought to that even in these early days. We're also really thinking a lot about the population in the Fraser Health District. And Fraser Health is, the Fraser Health region is one of the fastest growing regions in Canada, and I think has the highest percentage of newcomers to Canada and first generation Canadians of any health district in the country. Wow. So that's the community that we're thinking about, and we really want to see the diversity of that community in the classroom. I think affirmative action might not be the exact mechanism that we use to choose that or to construct that class, but we really are looking at a variety of opportunities that create that equal opportunity landscape.
Wonderful. So, thank you so much to all the students for these amazing questions. Catherine, thank you for answering these questions. I want to let folks know we weren't able to get to all of them. I think we got through over 20 though, so we did really well. We're going to take note of all of these questions, and we're going to keep in mind these questions when we put out future communications materials. So if you have more questions, you can continue to add them to Slido. But now I want to shift to something that I'm really excited about. If we can go to the next slide in Slido, please. We wanted to answer your questions because we know you're curious, you have a lot of questions, but now we want to, have you wear a different hat, have you wear the expert hat now. So if you could decide, one piece of advice for SFU as we move forward with the medical school proposal, what would that be? So what we'll invite you to do is if you could add your ideas in here, we'll give you a couple of moments. And then Catherine and I are going to, look through those ideas as they come in, and then we're going to have some concluding remarks. So we'll give you all a couple of moments. I'll stop talking, give you a couple of moments to please add your top piece of advice. And we're really looking forward to what you have to say. So thank you. And the link is in the chat again for folks to be able to navigate this. And I know this one is a little bit more tricky. We're putting you on the spot, but I know you'll come up with so many wonderful ideas. And I just want to make sure it's working. I'm pretty positive it's working. I wonder if one of my colleagues who's in the back end can just test it. Again, I know we didn't give you much advance notice that we'd be asking this question, but it can really be any idea. It doesn't have to necessarily be framed as a piece of advice, but maybe you have an idea as we move forward. We know that, as Catherine mentioned, this is a several-year initiative, so it's going to take a little bit of time. I see that there's one that's come in already, which is wonderful. Keep them coming. And if you've added that one, feel free to add another. The important thing too about these pieces of advice or these recommendations is we're going to collect all of them together. And they're actually going to feed into our What We Heard report. So we're going to do a What We Heard report, which essentially summarizes everything that we heard through the internal engagement process that Catherine described at the beginning. So your ideas here are really important because they're going to make it into that report. So I see a couple, I'm just going to read them out, but I would encourage folks to continue to add their ideas. We have two here. So I'm sure that many of us want to be part of this program. I'm thinking if creating a club would help students get more involved in the program. So that's a really interesting idea. Provide the community an opportunity to voice what they would like to see included in the curriculum. So that's really interesting. Keep current SFU students in the loop. Student participation in the medical school development process will be necessary to truly engage the SFU community. We understand the difficulty of creating the admissions requirements, but it would be helpful for a prospective student to know them as soon as possible or as soon as they become available to help with course planning. So these are such terrific ideas. Please keep these ideas coming, and Catherine and I can take a look as they come in. But I'm seeing a really big theme here, Catherine, as we wait for others to join in, a theme about that students want to be part of this conversation. And that there's probably a lot of different ways that can, manifest itself over the next several years. And I can see that my colleague Prod is going through them. There's so many right now. There's something about including foreign health care professionals. There's something about ensuring the school will be financially accessible. There's candidates that demonstrate the most compassion. That's really interesting, Catherine, when we were talking about that profile of a family doctor, for example, that compassion piece. I don't know, Catherine, is there any reflections that you have based on what you're seeing in these terrific pieces of advice or recommendations?
Yeah, I love these. I love these suggestions, and this suggestion about Indigenous leadership in the school is really high on my list. And so there's a few things here that I've thought of before, but there's a lot of things here that we haven't thought of before. So this is really fabulous. The idea of creating a student club, and I've already started thinking about, it's probably going to be that we have, like my thought about admissions requirements is that it will probably be very open. We do want to think about accessibility, and accessibility is not only financial accessibility, but really, admissions requirements really do set up particular hurdles. So, but the idea that we would try to move that earlier in the planning process is a really interesting one. So, yeah.
These are terrific. I just see more and more coming in, which is wonderful. So I'll encourage folks to please continue to send these ideas in. We'll keep this link live for a few minutes after the webinar in case you have a brilliant idea once we've disconnected. But what I want to do, if possible, is just shift to a couple of closing poll questions that we have for you that we would love your input on. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is we're doing a little bit of an on-the-spot evaluation. So you should see the exit polls coming up. So just 3 very simple questions. Did your level of knowledge or understanding regarding the medical school proposal increase as a result of attending this event? Do you think you have a better sense of the next steps for the medical school proposal as a result of attending this event? And then the last question is related to how satisfied you were with your experience as a participant. And this will just really help us gauge, you know, our planning for future events like this in webinars. So if you can just take a couple of moments and answer those poll questions, that would be wonderful. So we'll just give folks a couple more moments. And I know some of you are still actively on Slido. Both are really important. I wish if we had 4 hands, we could all do it at the same time. But I wonder, Salam, if we can just share the results of that poll, please. Oh my gosh, Catherine, this is amazing. 100% of people said that their knowledge and understanding increased as a result. So that means you did really well. Thank you. Similarly, a really strong result related to, do you have a better sense of those next steps? Even though we're still in those initial phases, that's really positive to see. And then we see that people were either highly satisfied or somewhat satisfied with their experience as a participant today. So really thank you.
I'm really impressed with that, given that so many questions don't have firm answers. But you guys are a very gracious audience.
We appreciate, I think, you being so candid and letting us know when you didn't have all the answers. So I wonder if we can just have the last slide, please. So I'll just offer a couple closing thoughts and then I'll turn it back over to Catherine. But I think I just want to first say that that went by very quickly. I knew it would, maybe almost too quickly. And as I mentioned before, I'm not surprised that as students, you were able to ask really interesting questions and provide some really unique and innovative recommendations. So we're going to capture all of this in the report. So please do keep sending in your ideas. And I think a note that I've taken personally, and I'm sure Catherine has as well, is that there is this deep interest in wanting to continue the conversation. So we're going to think about that deeply, you know, over the next couple of months and years. So I want to just also mention a big thank you to my colleagues, Prad and Salam, for just giving us such a smooth event today on the back end. It's so appreciated. And a reminder that we're collecting all of your information today, and it's going to be coming out in that What We Heard report that you can expect probably in a couple of weeks, and that will be available publicly on the SFU website. So that's it for me, Catherine, but I'd love to offer you an opportunity to just share some closing thoughts.
Mostly, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for coming out today and for your interest and enthusiasm in this project. That's really important for all of us who are working on this to understand, you know, part of the audience that we're going to be able to deliver it for. And I really appreciate the questions and suggestions. They're so helpful. And I'm looking forward to that report too, Michelle. Michelle, you're muted.
Oh my gosh, isn't that funny? It was bound to happen. It was going to happen to one of us. I'm happy
sooner or later.
Exactly. I'm happy to take that hit. But thank you to all the participants. Thank you to you, Catherine, and just wishing everyone a really happy and safe rest of the day.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.